I wasn't expecting my ego to get wrecked by a girl in sneakers who didn't care I owned the building. Most people walk into my office and start sweating before I say a word. They see the skyline through my glass walls. The custom Italian desk, the awards, and the small, perfectly placed plaque that says Landon Hayes, CEO, Hayes Industries. She didn't even glance at it. She stood there, holding a baby bag, in jeans that looked like they'd survived a decade, and a white t-shirt that didn't scream, "I'm impressed." It screamed, "I have better things to do, Mr. Hayes," she said, tone flat, voice like sunshine through blinds. "You're late," I blinked. "I'm the one doing the hiring, miss?" "Reyes," she said. "And I'm not here for the job interview. I already got the position. Your mother hired me. I'm here for your nephew." The universe froze for a beat. What? She frowned. "You don't even know there's a baby involved, do you?" I leaned back in my chair. "You must be mistaken." "I don't have—" "Your sister's son," she interrupted. "She said you'd be taking temporary guardianship. I'm the nanny she hired." That was when I realized my morning coffee wasn't nearly strong enough to deal with whatever this was. My sister, Caroline, had a flair for drama and a bad habit of leaving chaos wherever she went. Apparently, that now included dropping a 1-year-old and a nanny at my office unannounced. "Unbelievable," I muttered, standing and buttoning my black shirt. Caroline's idea of a favor never disappoints. The nanny, Reyes, tilted her head. "You're welcome, by the way." "For what?" "For not quitting on the spot." I was expecting a warm welcome. "Maybe a gold-plated stroller." She said it with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. There was sarcasm there, a tone I usually reserved for boardrooms and broken negotiations. Something about it made me want to keep her talking. "Gold's tacky," I said. "I prefer platinum." "I prefer honesty," she shot back. I smirked. "You'll have to lower your standards around here." "I don't lower my standards," she said. That's probably why people don't like me much. For some reason, that made me laugh. An hour later, my penthouse looked like a war zone of baby toys and designer chaos. I stood in the middle of the living room, tailored, irritated, and completely out of my element, as she unpacked the baby's things with military precision. "I'm assuming you've done this before?" I asked. "I've worked with kids for 6 years, she said, crouched on the floor, unzipping a bag full of bottles and wipes. "Usually the fathers are more involved." "I'm not his father." "Good to know," she said. "Because you're already doing a terrible job." I stared. "Excuse me? You don't even know how to hold him or look at him. You're treating him like a spreadsheet that doesn't balance." I folded my arms. "You're not here to judge me, Miss Reyes." "Actually," she said, meeting my gaze without flinching, "I'm here to protect him. That includes from emotional negligence." My jaw tightened. "You're direct. You're defensive." There was a long pause, heavy with the kind of tension I couldn't quite categorize. Annoyance, maybe. Admiration, possibly. I wasn't sure which annoyed me more. The baby started crying then, loud, desperate, the kind of sound that made the air vibrate with urgency. She moved instantly, scooping him up, whispering something soft against his forehead. I stood there, utterly useless, her voice dropped to a murmur. "He just misses his mom." That sentence hit harder than I wanted it to. I looked away. "She didn't say when she'd be back. She said a few weeks," Reyes replied. "She's sorting things out. I'm guessing that's code for something complicated." "Everything's complicated with Caroline," I said. "Especially her timing. Maybe she trusts you more than you think." That was laughable. Caroline trusted no one, least of all me. But I didn't say that out loud. Instead, I said, "You can use the guest room upstairs. I'll have someone bring your things from the lobby." "Already did," she said. "I'm not helpless." "I'm starting to see that." She smiled faintly, but it wasn't a friendly one. "Try to keep up, boss." Later that afternoon, I was on a business call when she barged into my office. No knock, no hesitation. Just energy and nerve. "Sorry to interrupt your empire building," she said, "but your nephew needs formula, not imported coffee beans." I covered the phone receiver. "I'm in the middle of a merger." "Then merge later. Babies don't wait." The look on her face left no room for argument. She was holding the baby on her hip like she'd been born to, hair falling into her eyes, sunlight catching in the strands. For the first time in a long time, someone wasn't afraid to interrupt me, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to fire her or thank her. That night, As the city burned gold outside the windows, I watched her feed the baby in the kitchen. Her laughter filled the space, light and real. It contrasted painfully with the sterile perfection I'd built my life around. I didn't like it. I didn't like that she made this place, my place, feel too human. "Why do you do this?" I asked suddenly. "Taking care of other people's children?" She looked up, startled by the question. "Because it matters. Doesn't it get exhausting?" "So does running from everything," she said softly. My throat tightened. She didn't mean it as an accusation, but it landed like one. I turned away. "You don't know anything about me." "I don't need to," she said. "You wear your walls like a suit." That one stung. Probably because it was true. By the weekend, we'd settled into an uneasy rhythm. She filled the house with warmth and noise. I tried not to let it bother me. But every time she smiled, every time she challenged me, something in my carefully built detachment cracked a little more. I'd catch myself watching her in the reflection of the glass doors, barefoot, moving easily through my kitchen, talking to the baby as if he were a person with opinions. I couldn't remember the last time someone had looked that alive around me. Sunday afternoon, we went for a walk downtown. She insisted the baby needed sunlight. I insisted I didn't do parks. Somehow she won. She laughed when I grumbled about the heat. "You're impossible." "I prefer efficient. You prefer control," she corrected. And that's not the same thing. She was right again. I hated that she kept being right. At the cafe, people stared, some recognizing me, some just curious. I was used to it. She wasn't. But instead of shrinking from the attention, she carried herself with calm indifference. It disarmed me completely. One of the reporters lingering nearby snapped a photo, whispering to a friend. I saw the flash and groaned inwardly. "That's just great," I muttered. "By tomorrow morning, the headlines will say the billionaire playboy has a secret family." She raised an eyebrow. "You worried about your reputation, Mr. Hayes?" "Always." Maybe it could use a little humanizing. I stared at her, stunned into silence. She smiled, took the baby's bottle from the stroller, and added quietly, "Relax. I'm not your scandal." But she was wrong, because by the end of that afternoon, I knew the scandal was already happening, in my chest. When we got home, my assistant called. "Landon, the press is running a story. Picture of you and that woman with a baby. Headline says you're secretly married with a child." Reyes froze mid-step. I closed my eyes. "Of course. Damage control," I said into the phone. "Tell them she's an employee." "Just the nanny." Her expression shifted. Hurt flickered, quick and sharp. "Just the nanny," she repeated. The silence that followed was heavier than any boardroom standoff I'd ever faced. She turned away before I could explain, and for the first time in my life, I had the feeling that the real fallout hadn't even begun. I'd been in crisis meetings before, mergers collapsing, investors panicking, PR teams crying, but none of them felt quite like the silence that hung between us the next morning. She was feeding the baby at the dining table, hair tied back, face calm. Too calm. I stood near the window pretending to read emails I couldn't see. "Any new headlines?" she asked finally, voice light but edged. "Half the country thinks I'm a family man now," I said. "Congratulations, Miss Reyes, you've made me relatable." She didn't laugh. "You made me collateral," I turned. "It's not personal. It's business." "That's your problem," she said quietly. "Everything's business," the baby squealed between us, almost like he was trying to interrupt the argument. She smiled at him, not me. It hit me harder than I wanted to admit. By noon, the story had spread everywhere. Billionaire CEO seen with mystery woman and child. Every variation was more dramatic than the last. My board wanted explanations. My PR team wanted denials. And my sister, bless her chaos, wanted to know if the nanny looked as pretty in person as the photos. I hung up on her. Reyes was pacing the living room when I got off the call. "We need to get ahead of this," she said. "The media won't let it go." "I'm handling it." With another statement calling me just the nanny? Her tone sliced through the air. I winced. "You're angry." I'm humiliated. The words stopped me cold. She wasn't yelling, but it landed harder than shouting. "I didn't mean to—" "Yes, you did," she interrupted. "You meant to make it go away. I get it, that's your instinct. Erase, deny, replace." Her eyes were bright, fierce. "But you can't erase people, Mr. Hayes, not me. Not him." She nodded at the baby. That one sentence undid me. The next day, my assistant showed up with a grimace. "The board wants you to clean this up, fast. Maybe do a press appearance with her to clarify the story. Make it look harmless." I stared. "You want me to parade her in front of cameras? She's already in the headlines. Might as well control the narrative." When I told Reyes, she laughed, short, bitter, incredulous. "Of course. Turn me into PR strategy. I didn't suggest it. But you didn't say no either." I sighed. "If it gets them off our backs, maybe we should." She crossed her arms. "I'm a nanny, not your accessory. Then what are you?" The question came out sharper than I intended. Her chin lifted. "Someone who doesn't need your approval to exist." There it was, the spark again. It burned and fascinated me in equal measure. "Fine," I said. "No cameras. We'll ride out the storm." "Together?" she asked. That word made something twist in my chest. If that's what it takes. Over the next week, together turned into its own kind of punishment. She was everywhere, laughing with the baby in the kitchen, humming while she cleaned bottles, ignoring me when I tried to reclaim my workspace. The more I tried to stay detached, the more I found myself drawn to the sound of her voice. One afternoon, she caught me watching. "You keep looking like you've never seen a human being before," she said. "I'm trying to figure out how you manage chaos so calmly." She smiled faintly. "Maybe I like chaos." "It's honest," I frowned. "What's dishonest about order?" "Control," she said simply. "You pretend it's strength. But it's fear, isn't it?" For a second, I forgot to breathe. "How do you do that?" I asked. "Do what?" "See through me." Her eyes softened. "Because you look like someone who forgot how to be seen." I had no clever reply to that. By Friday, the baby had come down with a fever. She stayed up all night taking care of him. I sat on the couch pretending to review quarterly reports. But I couldn't take my eyes off her. Every now and then, she'd whisper softly to calm him, patience radiating like warmth. At dawn, she slumped against the wall, exhausted. I brought her coffee without thinking. "You didn't have to," she murmured. "I know." I hesitated. "You looked like you needed it." She took the cup, fingers brushing mine. A jolt ran up my arm. "Thanks," she said softly. The sunlight caught her face just then. Tired, beautiful, real. Something shifted in me. That weekend, we went to the park again. I told myself it was for the baby's sake, but she saw through that too. "Careful," she teased. "You're starting to enjoy fresh air." "Don't tell anyone," I said. "I have a reputation to maintain," she laughed. A real laugh this time, and I found myself wanting to hear it again. Then, as if the universe enjoyed ruining me, one of my exes appeared. Lauren, the PR executive who'd once told me I was emotionally unavailable in designer clothing. "Landon," she said sweetly. "I see you've moved on fast." Before I could speak, Reyes stepped forward, calm as ever. "We haven't moved anywhere." "I work for him," Lauren smirked. "Of course you do." She walked off, but the damage was done. Reyes's expression turned stormy. "I can handle my own image," I said. "Apparently not," she muttered, pushing the stroller away. I caught up with her at the car. "Don't let her get to you." "She didn't," she said tightly. "You did. That hit like a punch I didn't see coming. Back home, I found her packing her things. You're quitting?" "I should have left the moment you said just the nanny," she said, voice shaking. "But I stayed because of him." She glanced at the sleeping baby. "Not you," I ran a hand through my hair. "Reyes, I'm tired of being something you manage," she said. "You manage companies, scandals, people, but you can't control this." Her eyes glistened. "You don't even try to feel it." "I do feel," I said quietly. "You have no idea how much." "Then show me," she whispered, but I didn't. Not yet. I was too good at swallowing everything that mattered. She turned away, shaking her head. "You're not broken, Landon. You're just scared of what fixing yourself will cost." And then she walked out. 3 hours later, the baby woke up crying. I held him awkwardly, pacing the hall, whispering nonsense words until he quieted down. That's when it hit me, how much of myself I'd been avoiding. The silence in the apartment was unbearable. Every trace of her, the scent of her coffee, the folded blanket on the couch, felt like proof of something I'd ruined without meaning to. I called her number. Straight to voicemail. I shouldn't have said what I said, I began, voice low. You were right. I treat people like contracts because it's easier than losing them. The words stumbled out. You make me want to try again. That scares the hell out of me. I didn't send it. Just listened to my own confession in the quiet. The next morning, Caroline called again. So the nanny quit? I sighed. You could say that. Well, that's your fault, she said. You always think love is a transaction. I don't... Landon, please, she interrupted. You once sent a breakup text with a non-disclosure agreement attached, I groaned. That was one time, she laughed. You sound like someone who finally met his match. Maybe she was right. That afternoon, I went to Reyes's apartment to talk. Her neighbor said she wasn't home. Something about a temporary agency sending her to another client's house in Westlake Hills. The idea of her working for someone else, someone who'd see her laugh, talk, live, made something twist hard in my chest. I drove back through the city, sunlight glaring off the windshield, feeling every bit like a man who'd built a kingdom only to find it empty. By the time I got home, my assistant was waiting in the lobby, pale and panicked. Sir, she said, you should see this. She handed me her phone. A news headline flashed, Nanny quits billionaire job. Insider reveals shocking secret about Hayes' family. Beneath it, a grainy photo of Reyes holding the baby outside my building. The caption read, Was she more than a nanny? My stomach dropped. I scrolled down and froze when I saw the quote. It was from her. Some people think love is a liability. I think it's the only asset worth risking. She'd said that to a reporter, not as revenge, as truth. And for the first time, I realized exactly what I was risking by doing nothing. Money could fix almost anything, except the sound of her voice on television. I'd just finished a board meeting when my assistant replayed the clip. Reyes stood on the front steps of her new client's home, sunlight behind her, holding my nephew. Her tone was steady, but her words burned like gasoline. Some people think love is a liability, she said. I think it's the only asset worth risking. She wasn't angry. She was heartbreakingly calm, and that made it worse. For a man who built his empire on control, I had no leverage left. Not over her, not over the truth, not even over myself. By noon, every network wanted a response. I ignored them. My PR head nearly combusted trying to reach me. Landon, if we don't respond, they'll write their own story. Then let them, I said. Maybe their version's better than mine. She blinked. You're serious? For once, yes. The truth was, I didn't care about the headlines anymore. I cared that I'd broken something I didn't know how to fix. I'd drawn a line between us so many times, boss and employee, man and woman, logic and emotion, that I'd forgotten what existed on the other side of it. Her integrity had made me see myself clearly for the first time, and the reflection wasn't flattering. By late afternoon, my sister showed up unannounced, dragging a suitcase and a glare. You've done it now, Caroline said, setting the baby carrier on the table. Reyes called me. She's not coming back. Good to know my reputation for disaster precedes me, I said bitterly. Caroline crossed her arms. You don't need a new PR team, Landon. You need therapy and a grand gesture. I don't do grand gestures, she smirked. You didn't do babies either, and yet here we are. I glared. She smiled. We'd been here before, her calling me out, me pretending it didn't hurt. But this time she wasn't joking. She cared about you, Caroline said softly. Anyone could see that. You just kept hiding behind your walls. And look how that turned out. She sighed. Maybe it's time to let someone see past them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation with Reyes, her laughter, her irritation, her warmth. She had challenged me in ways no one dared to, and she'd been right every time. You wear your walls like a suit. She'd said that on her first day. I finally understood what she meant. I'd mistaken armor for identity, and now, if I wanted her back, I'd have to strip it off, publicly. The next morning, I called my assistant. Book me a press conference, noon, my building. Sir, after everything, do it, I said. If the world wanted a show, I'd give them one. Just not the kind they expected. When I stepped onto the stage, the press room was a sea of cameras and murmurs. Sunlight cut across the marble floor. My tie was gone, top button undone. The old me would have hated that. The new me didn't care. I took a breath. You've all read the stories. Half of them are wrong, the other half are worse. But for once, I'm not here to control the narrative. The room went silent. I'm here to tell the truth. I looked straight into the cameras, knowing she might be watching. The woman you saw with me, her name is Sophia Reyes. She worked for me, and I owe her an apology that doesn't fit into a press statement. Flashes erupted. I kept going. I called her just the nanny because I was too proud to admit what she meant to me. I built my life around rules. No attachments, no emotions, no risk. She broke that rule just by walking into my office. The murmurs grew louder, reporters scribbling furiously. I used to think love was a weakness, I said quietly. Turns out it's the only thing that makes strength worth anything. I ended the conference there. No Q&A, no spin, just truth. The video went viral within hours. Half the internet mocked me. The other half turned it into some kind of redemption saga. But I didn't care about hashtags or opinions. I only cared about one message, the one I hoped she'd hear beneath all the noise. That I wasn't too proud anymore. 3 days later, there was a knock at my penthouse door. When I opened it, she was standing there, sunlight behind her again. Same sneakers, same quiet strength, same eyes that could unmake me with a glance. "You're hard to ignore, you know," she said softly. I exhaled. I was hoping the press conference wasn't a complete disaster. "You called me by my name," she said. "That's a start." I should have done it sooner. "Yes," she said simply. We stood there for a long moment, silence stretching between apology and forgiveness. Then she said, "Why'd you do it?" "Because I finally understood what you meant." I met her eyes. "Love's not a liability. It's the one thing I can't afford to lose." Her lips curved. "That's a pretty line." "It's not a line," I said quietly. "It's my truth." She stepped inside, glancing at the baby carrier on the couch. "He missed you." "I missed both of you," I said. Her brows lifted. "Both?" I nodded. "You came here to take care of him, but you ended up fixing me instead." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "I didn't fix you, Landon. You just stopped pretending you didn't need to be." That laugh, warm, real, forgiving, felt like sunlight hitting places inside me that had never seen it before. Later, we took the baby for a walk. No assistants, no cameras, just the three of us in a city that suddenly seemed softer. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked. "For what?" "Letting people see who you really are." I smiled. "I think that's the point." She arched a brow. "And who is that exactly?" I looked at her. "A man who finally broke his own rule." She laughed, eyes shining. "Which one?" "The one that said love was bad for business." When we stopped at the cafe downtown, people still whispered and stared. But this time I didn't care. She sat across from me, stirring her coffee, sunlight catching on the rim of her cup. The baby giggled between us. I used to hate this city, I admitted. Too loud, too bright, too full of reminders of who I was trying to be. "And now?" she asked. "Now it feels like home." She smiled. "You sound like a man in love." I am. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't staged. Just 3 words, quiet and certain. Her hand brushed mine on the table. "You know," she said teasingly, "most billionaires buy flowers or jewelry when they apologize. You gave me a press conference." "I wanted something permanent," I said. "Something the whole world couldn't unhear." She shook her head, laughing. "You're impossible." "Efficient," I corrected. "Remember." That made her laugh harder. "Don't start with me, Hayes." As the sun hit its peak, the city buzzed around us. Cars, laughter, the sound of ordinary life. For once, I wasn't outside of it. I was part of it. I looked at her and realized something simple but seismic. She hadn't changed me. She'd reminded me who I could be if I stopped hiding behind my empire. "Do you regret taking the job?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. "Not for a second. You just took longer to learn your lesson." "Which was?" Her eyes softened. "That people matter more than pride." We walked back slowly, the baby asleep in the stroller, our shoulders brushing occasionally. Every step felt like breathing for the first time in years. When we reached the building, she looked up at it. Glass, steel, sunlight catching every surface. "You know," she said, "for a man who used to hate interruptions, you've gotten better at letting life in." I smiled. "Guess I had the right teacher." She tilted her head. "So what now, Mr. Hayes?" I thought about the question, then reached for her hand. "Now," I said, "we start over. No contracts, no titles. Just us." Her fingers tightened around mine. "I can live with that." The baby stirred, letting out a small laugh in his sleep, like even he approved. As we stood there, sunlight, reflecting off the glass around us, I thought back to the first day she'd walked into my office, unimpressed, unafraid, unmovable. She'd called me out on every flaw, dismantled every defense, and forced me to look at what I'd become. And somehow, instead of running, she'd given me a chance to be better. I used to think falling in love meant losing control. Turns out, it's the only kind of control worth having. If love stories that blur the line between pride and vulnerability pull at your heart, don't stop here. Subscribe to the CEO Romance Stories and dive into more tales where arrogance meets innocence and love always rewrites the rules. Turn on notifications, hit that bell icon, and get lost in your next addictive story of passion, redemption, and impossible attraction. Told straight from the heart of the man who never meant to fall.